And now, introducing a man whose biopic, Now in Glenn, the Glenn Clark story, is in post-production with Dave Coulier starring as the lead role. And I'm here to remind you, he is Glenn Clark.
Good morning, it's Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn. He is Paul Valley. She's Papa Cass. We got her back to training on, now we got through Jordan having to run the board a couple days. We've sent Papa Cass back to training on how to run the board. We'll see. We'll see. I want her to literally produce the show 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today, I want Papa Cass running this show. Jordan did it, right? So if Jordan can do it, you can do it, Cass. I believe in you. Like, you are capable of running the show. I think that you, frankly, don't tell him. I think you're better than him. No, it's just what it is.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I believe
I'll
it.
take that.
I believe in you.
Okay.
You can do this.
If
all
you
right?
believe, then I'm good.
I believe in you. We will see how it goes. But I want that to be the case. That 2 weeks from now, Papa Cass is producing the show. Hi, good morning. Obviously, what a huge bummer it was last night down in D.C. as Towson just could not hit a shot from outside. And despite rallying back and getting within 2 points in the second half, they never got any closer and ultimately lose in the semifinals of the CAA Tournament to Delaware. Delaware will go on to face Wilmington for the title. Towson's season is not actually over by virtue of winning the number 1 seed in the CAA. They guarantee themselves a spot in the NIT, and that's very little consolation to a program that was looking for their first trip to the NCAA tournament in 30-plus years. It's a weird, there's two things you want to say. The first thing you want to say is, like, this alone shouldn't define a team. That this shouldn't be individually the way that a team is success, that one game shouldn't be what defines whether or not they achieve something. But that's the nature of being in a one-bid league. It's just the way that it works. Whatever else you do is overshadowed by, did you win your conference tournament? And is that a fair way of doing things? No, it's not, but that's the way the sport works. It's a sport that ultimately comes down to March. It's like when people like to say, hey, Mark Turgeon won a lot of basketball games, and the response back is immediately, right, but what did he do in March? And the answer was nothing. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the sport. The nature of the sport is nothing matters except what happens in this month. They'll play a season for 6 months to set you up, but it's only this one that matters. So it's a huge bummer. I don't want to beat them up. It's one game, and things happen in one game, and tight whistles, and Charles Thompson being banged up, and all of it sort of played a role. But ultimately, I don't remember what they finished. They were 4 of 20 when I looked last from beyond the arc.
4 of 23.
Yeah, I was like,
Shot 31% from the field.
Not going to do it. Just not going to do it by any stretch of the imagination. So it's what it is. It's sad, obviously, and that was this area's best chance at having a team in the NCAA tournament. It's not the only chance, of course, and in fact, there's another good chance coming up tomorrow night. Navy travels to Colgate for the Patriot League championship game. Colgate, by far the top team in that league, and unlike in the CAA where they play the games at a neutral site, and so it sort of takes away some of the advantage of being the top team, Colgate gets to host the Patriot League title game. So you're going to be going into a raucous atmosphere, and it's not going to be easy against the top team. But Navy's going to have that shot on the road tomorrow night. UMBC is still alive in the America East tournament. They're the number 2 seed. Of course, unfortunately, Vermont is the overwhelming number 1 seed in that league. But UMBC hosts a semifinal tomorrow, and if they were to win that, they would play in the America East title game over the weekend. I think that's on Saturday. Morgan and Coppin both in the MEAC tournament a little bit later on this week. So they're still and of course, Maryland is still in the Big Ten tournament. You never know. They play Michigan State, or they just got their ass beat by in the first round of the Big Ten. And I guess technically it's the second round of the Big Ten tournament because that gets underway tomorrow. They play on Thursday.
A quick question for you.
Yes.
So we know Towson's going to the NIT. For Maryland, it's like a lame consolation prize. It's like shining up a turd. But for Towson, does it mean more because they're a mid-major, or is it still?
It means more than it would at a power program, sure. But when you have the opportunity, when you win your league, when you have the chance to do it,
right?
it's fun to keep playing. The players will be happy they get to keep playing. The coaches will be happy they get to keep playing. Those are things that you like doing. You don't ever want to see your season just completely come to an end, and then you wake up tomorrow and you realize you don't get to go to practice. If they were getting to host a game, it might mean something a little bit more to the fan base. It's unlikely that they'll be hosting anything in the NIT, so that won't really whip up the area to say, you're traveling to Florida to play a basketball game. Cool, or whoever it ends up being. I don't know who it's going to end up being that they'll travel to. It's what it is. It's fine. I don't want to say it's not. It's not nothing because it's a reward for having won your league, and winning your league is impressive. And I'm glad that when the NCAA took over the NIT, they made this part of it, that if you win your league regular season, you're guaranteed to be part of the postseason. I'm glad that's a thing that exists. But no, it's depressing. There's no getting around it. It's depressing for a program that had the real belief, and it's not just that they were winning, they were beating teams' asses down the stretch. And it certainly seemed like nerves played a factor. They did not play particularly well in either game they played down in D.C. There were shots that were put up last night that weren't even close. That it just looked like the moment was getting to them. And the pressure of being the team to finally end this drought at Towson, a lot of those things were getting to them as the night wore on last night. Bummer. Just a bummer. I really don't want to spend that much more time harping on it because there's nothing pleasant about talking about a team losing and essentially having their season end. I know, again, it's not actually the way that it works. They get to play in the NIT, but for all intents and purposes, their season came to an end last night. We will talk about it with Patrick Stevens, what happened. We'll do a post-mortem about that, and we'll also talk to him about those other teams that are still alive and still have chances, including Navy, who's got a very good chance, and UMBC and the MEAC teams. We'll do that a little bit later on this hour. Coming up in just a few minutes, former NFL GM Randy Mueller, our friend, someone that we always love chatting with, former Saints Dolphins GM. We will get his thoughts on what the Ravens are dealing with in terms of the Lamar Jackson situation. Today's show is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. And, of course, that's always the best place to be for all of the big events, most especially the NCAA Tournament. You're going to want to hang out in the FanDuel Sportsbook. 51 self-service kiosks for you to constantly be getting bets in as the games are going on. You can literally camp out all day long. I guess not literally. That's probably the wrong word to say because you're not going to bring like your griddle, but you get the point. You can come for the entirety of the first weekend of the NCAA Tournament. Get there early, like 11 a.m. You can get your food, your drinks going, start getting bets in, watch games throughout the day on Thursday and Friday next week. I'm going to be hanging out. In fact, we might have to alter the plans for the program next Friday, but I'm going to be hanging out at the FanDuel Sportsbook not only this Sunday during the Big Ten title game and the selection show, but I'm going to be back for Friday of the first weekend of the NCAA Tournament to hang out and watch games. So I'm really looking forward to that, and there's just nowhere better to be when the NCAA Tournament's going on than in a sportsbook, and the FanDuel Sportsbook is the place to be. If you want to guarantee your spot, I would email events@sportssocialmd.com. That's events@sportssocialmd.com in order to guarantee reserve your table, reserve your reclining chair, whatever it is. Events@sportssocialmd.com is the way to do it. And don't forget, coming up later on this morning, Simply the Bets, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Every Tuesday we do that at 11:40, and this Thursday we'll debut Weekend at Bookies at 11:40. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. So Bruce Billick from the FanDuel Sportsbook and our buddy Aaron Oster from VSiN will join us a little bit later on this morning for Simply the Bets. Now, the story of the day, of course, in the NFL, Calvin Ridley is suspended for the year because it was discovered that he bet on football last season. And it's been really weird watching the responses to this unfold. It's been very strange because there has been almost this sort of, I get it, the NFL is becoming so powerful that whenever anything happens, there is this almost immediate punch back from a certain group of people that the NFL must be wrong. It's what happens when someone becomes as powerful as the NFL has become. That no matter what you do, we have to assume we need to check you because you go unchecked constantly, because you have almost unilateral and all-encompassing power in this country. And that is where the NFL has gone, frankly. I mean, the NFL has become that powerful in America that there is this feel from a certain percentage of the population that you have to check them. Everything they do, it must be wrong. It must be wrong because they're too powerful. We've got to be the ones. We've got to keep them in check. And to be very clear, the NFL has gotten a great number of things wrong. Antonio Brown was still playing in the NFL. That's wrong. That shouldn't have been happening. There are plenty of things that the NFL has gotten terribly wrong over the years. And we can talk about this in context of other things, but we'll get there. We start with this initially. There is absolutely no defense of Calvin Ridley betting on football. There is no defense of it in the context of the NFL taking money from gambling companies. Not remotely. That is a desperate attempt to try to create some cause and effect that 1,000% does not exist. It is not the NFL's fault that Calvin Ridley bet on football. There have been so many brainless tweets in the last 24 hours. Well, this is what was going to happen when you started taking money from... No, this was what was going to happen when sports gambling became legalized. It has nothing to do with the NFL taking money from betting companies. None. Zero. Sports betting is legalized, which makes it easier to do. And when something's easy to do, someone like Calvin Ridley sitting around not playing football gets bored one day, so I'm going to go throw a couple of bets in. Do you think that there's any chance that Calvin Ridley decided to bet on football because he was watching an ad on the NFL Network? We are not this obtuse. We're just desperate to try to make the NFL look bad because they become so powerful. There is no cause and effect. There is no, well, this was always going to happen. There's none of that. This has not, the NFL is in no ways at fault. Not for this. Plenty of other things. Not for this. We are brainless. We're desperate for something to cling to. Well, it's you get in bed with these types of people, you're going to get this type of stuff. No! No! There is no ambiguity here. If you play in the NFL, you can't bet on the NFL. If you are involved... Do you know why Martha Stewart went to prison all those years ago, Paul?
Wasn't it insider trading?
Insider trading. Which is illegal. And you go to prison. She went to prison for a while, if I remember correctly.
2 years.
Not for a weekend. She didn't get work release. She was in a federal prison.
Martha Stewart's prison is a little bit more cushy than yours and mine.
Might be. It might be. I don't know.
She's probably playing tennis every day.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know that. I don't know that. I don't remember. It was a while ago. Martha Stewart went to prison. Calvin Ridley doesn't have to go to prison. At some point, the lawmakers in this country might have to think about those types of things. Calvin Ridley ain't going to prison. This thing where like Calvin Ridley is getting some unfair shake ain't true. What he was doing essentially could be considered insider trading, but yet he doesn't have to go to prison. He just doesn't get to play football for a year. And as a lot of people have pointed out, the argument would be the precedent is you get banned for life, and he's lucky he's not getting that.
Pete Rose.
It's not the only one.
Yeah.
Just the most famous, obviously. And I disagreed with that, too, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to make that very clear. I don't think you should be banned for life. The point is the NFL has to make it very clear to everyone else, you don't do this. Period. And in order to make that abundantly clear, they can't say, well, gee, gosh, golly, he just slipped up. We'll give him 4 games and all's good. You have to send the message because it cannot occur. There cannot be any question about the legitimacy of what the product that someone is watching. Not when there's this type of money at stake. Somebody said, well, the players should be allowed to get some of the gambling money. They do. It's part of the NFL revenue. It's what they collectively bargain. All of the money the league makes gets bargained. Now, they might say they deserve a greater percentage of it, and I don't know that I would disagree with them. But they got to bargain that. They had their chance. They're going to do it again in a few years. Gambling revenue will drive the costs of the media product up, and they will get more of that money. It will occur. That's the way it works. There is no world in which players can go bet on football, because when players bet on football, either one, it can be misconstrued as insider trading, because no matter what Calvin Ridley says about, well, I wasn't around the team. Yeah? You didn't get a text from somebody saying so-and-so wasn't going to play that week? How do we know that?
Not to mention the fact that the team without Calvin Ridley on it isn't the same team. Now, I know he was betting on. I know he was betting on the Falcons to win.
But that doesn't. I mean, anybody could bet on it that way. You know what I mean? Like that. He doesn't have information that anybody else couldn't have because he was out. We all knew Calvin Ridley was out.
That's true.
My fantasy team most certainly knew that Calvin Ridley was out. By the way, was certainly planning on having him as a keeper the next year. So
I got a text from my brother-in-law.
Toss that aside.
Saying F, he was my keeper next year.
Yep, that was a plan for your boy. Oh, well, not a lot we can do about that. It doesn't change the fact that it was the right thing to do. Calvin Ridley and everyone else in the NFL has to understand. You want to play in the league, there's one thing you can't do. You can't bet on football, period. You know what you can bet on? Everything else! Everything! You want to bet on darts? Go bet on darts. You want to bet on golf? Bet on golf. You want to bet on snooker? I don't even know what snooker is and how it relates to Nicole Snooky Polizzi. But I know it's a sport, and you can bet on it. There was another brainless, and Mike Florio was the captain of the brainlessness. Mike's an attorney. I don't dislike Mike. I don't know when he became this guy, but, he was the captain of the brainless yesterday. Well, you don't think it's a little bit weird that you're advertising this product that anybody can use except for football players? No, they can use it. Calvin Ridley is allowed to bet. He can go sign up at the FanDuel Sportsbook, at Live Casino and Hotel tomorrow. He just can't bet on the NFL. He wants to bet on Navy tomorrow night in the Patriot League Championship. Bet away. God. Why is this hard? What do we not get about this? Why are we struggling? The other reason why football players can't bet on football is very simple. Because you don't want the 56th man on the roster, the guy that thinks he's going to be cut next week, to be easily influenced by someone who wants to have him manipulate the outcome of a game. And that, as I've said a billion times, is more difficult because it happened all those years ago at Arizona State. There is this thought that it's easy to do. Even when Tim Donaghy's scheme was being run, it wasn't to manipulate the outcome of the game. It was merely to manipulate the overs. It was to call more fouls at the end of the game to make sure an over hit. The NFL has to protect the integrity of the game. And if players are able to bet, then it is much easier for them to think about, a bet against my team, and then if I have the chance, I'll fumble a ball late. And I get it. I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. I don't actually believe those things are happening, but it's the reason why you don't let football players bet on games. It's just not that hard. We are going so far out of our way to not see it. And it doesn't even bother me that other players are trying to stick up for Calvin Ridley because I kind of get it, right? You're part of the fraternity. You don't ever want to see anyone punished or have their livelihood taken away. But if you don't get this, it's on you. You're not trying. There's one rule. You know what actually, that's not true. There are other things that the rest of us are able to do that football players aren't able to do. You know what happens the night before an NFL game, Paul? Are you aware of what the players do the night before a game?
Drug testing?
Well, there's that. We don't all get subject to drug testing, not always the night before the game. They all have to stay in a hotel, even if the game is at home. Even if they live right next to the stadium, they have to stay at a team hotel the night before the game and get subjected to night check. They have a bedtime the night before a football game. Tom Brady's 44 years old. He had a bedtime the night before football games this season. Now, knowing how Tom Brady takes care of his body, I'm pretty sure Tom Brady is not the night owl that other people might be. You know what I don't have to do the night before work any night? I don't have to be subjected to a bedtime. I don't have my employer, John Coulson, doesn't come around and make sure that I'm in my room at a certain time before the show every night. NFL players have to put up with that.
He doesn't do that to you?
Well, that's a different thing. We heard about some stories about you. So, actually, the weird part, your wife requested it. It was a very strange scenario.
I just
when
assumed
you
that's
took
how
the
I
job.
got the job.
Yeah, she said, we would prefer if you guys would come around and make sure Paul's in bed every night. And I was like, all right, fine. We got to hire somebody else in order to do it. It was very uncomfortable for everyone
That's why she's
involved.
here.
That's right. That's Cass's job now. There are things that NFL players, there are rules that exist for them that don't exist for the rest of the world. And by the way, there are rules for other jobs that exist for that job that don't exist for the rest of the world. Some jobs have drug testing. Some jobs don't. Some jobs require you to wear certain things. Other jobs don't. NFL player is a job that requires you to do certain things, including not bet on NFL games. Again, anything else you want to bet on. Hockey, the Capitals play tonight. You want to bet on that? Go bet on it. Anything else. You want to bet on whether or not aliens or humans will win the aliens versus humans war? You can do that. As long as it's legal in the state that you're in. Here in Maryland, you can do it. The FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. There's one thing that you can't do. One. It's not hard. I don't know why we're going so far out of our way in order to try to make it seem like this is unfair or the NFL is wrong for taking gambling money but not letting players bet on football games. Like, it's just so brainless the way that we're discussing it. I feel like it's an appropriate time to say this. Know the risks and have a plan before you start gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org. Joining us now, friend of ours. Always enjoy my conversations with this man. He is, of course, the former general manager of both the New Orleans Saints and the Miami Dolphins. He is our friend, Mr. Randy Mueller, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Randy, it's Glenn and Paul. It's great to chat with you as always, sir. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Thanks, guys. Good to be back with you.
Hey, obviously the reason we called is we want to talk about Lamar, but if I could, just because it's been such a story for the last 24 hours, is there any world in which there is a level of ambiguity? Like, I like to believe that when players get into the NFL, it is made abundantly clear to them there is no way, no how, no sir, not whatsoever. You understand how taboo it is to bet on NFL games. Is there any chance that Calvin Ridley or any other player doesn't know exactly that you cannot, under any circumstances, no matter what, no matter how, bet on NFL games?
Zero chance, guys. Absolutely zero chance. There is no way you can come into the league like these guys do and have forever and spend time around any locker room and in any building in the NFL and think that it's okay to bet on games. I think the narrative that has been brought up over the last 24 hours is crazy, and I think you guys just mentioned it. The fact that the league takes gambling money from these big companies has zero to do with players betting on games.
None.
We're talking about the integrity of the game, and frankly, I'm shocked that it's only 1 year, and I'm not convinced it's going to be only 1 year. They said at least 1 year. So we'll see how it shakes out, but I don't think this is something the league can mess with. It's the perception that's damaging. Whether he bet $1 or $10, the perception of fans now that look at it between this and the Miami Dolphins owner supposedly offering up money for losing, the league has had a bad month. Let's just face it.
There's no doubt.
The worst thing that can happen to the league is to have its integrity questioned, and that's what this does. So obviously they've done their own investigation and came out and said nothing else was involved. Of course they're going to say that. They can't have anything else. If there were tapes on this one, they'd have them burned like they did the last time around. So there's a lot of issues here, no doubt. It's not a good look.
Randy,
Optics are bad.
The biggest thing that jumps out at me is that they have to make it very clear to everyone else, you're not going to do this. And so that's why the idea that it comes out, and trust me, the comparison that people make to domestic violence and things like that, there are plenty of instances where I think the NFL has failed in appropriately punishing someone for their actions, but that doesn't mean that you keep continuing to fail to appropriately punish someone for their actions, and that's a different conversation. I think the most important part is that it's got to be clear every single one of these rookies that's about to come into the league in the next couple of months has to know you don't do this. There's no, hey, you might be able to get away with it. There's no, hey, just give some money to your wife and let her do it or something like that. It's got to be abundantly clear. If we find out you're doing it, it's going to derail your career entirely.
Yeah, and here's the bad thing about it. It is made abundantly clear. These guys have posters all over the locker room. They have posters everywhere that affix the league with non-gambling. I mean, it bounces in their face every day. So this is an issue that, I've not heard of this before, but you're right. They have to nip it in the bud. It's completely different. We're talking apples and oranges to the domestic violence and these other issues that come up. Totally different. And I'm not condoning any of that. I'm just saying that when the integrity of the game, when the wins and losses and what happens on the field gets challenged, that's a big thing. And that's what the professional, that's what any sport has to bank on, is that it's a game of that's played and settled on the field, not because somebody has a bet on something. So it's a big deal.
I'm in agreement on that. I still think we should have stronger penalties for those other things that we're talking about. But yes, you're right.
100%.
It's apples and oranges. There's no question about it. Randy Mueller is with us here on GCR. Randy, so the reason why we called you, of course, is because we're still dealing. You and I have talked about Lamar Jackson a lot in the last year or so. We're still dealing with it. It seems to get weirder by the day. Jason LaCanfora reports last week that the Ravens have offered no more than $35 million. Well, we know what the quarterback market looks like right now, and Aaron Rodgers might well about to hit $50 million. And I get it. That's Aaron Rodgers that we're talking about. I understand that. But this is the way the quarterback market works. Like, once the numbers go a certain place, you don't get to say, well, we'd rather pay our guy this amount. We would prefer it that way. When you read or hear that the Ravens offer to Lamar Jackson was around the $35 million range, is your reaction – that's a non-serious offer, they must not want to really sign Lamar Jackson? Or is your reaction, no, this is how negotiating works. You put a number out there, and that's just where you're starting in order to get the conversation going?
I think it's a little of both. My first reaction is that number tells me that they may not want to play this style of football going forward. And it has nothing to do with Lamar personally. It's just that this style is going to take them so far, and they're willing to pay that amount. But your point of negotiations taking on a start low, end high, that obviously is a factor as well. How high are they willing to go? How high have they been before? Is this number of 35 is a conclusion of a year and a half of negotiating? Because you're right. We've been talking about this forever. I just think it's a little bit of all the above. It tells me I'm not sure they're sold. And I've said this all along. It's really a style and a strategy as much as it is valuing Lamar. I don't know if they think this is the way they can win a Super Bowl. And if it's not, maybe they're drawing the line in the sand. And we're all surmising, right? We think there's a former MVP here. He should be paid top market value. And I don't dispute that. But all of us have to admit the style in which Lamar has to play to be successful is different. There's no mold. There hasn't been this, anybody as good as Lamar that plays this style that has been sustainable over a several year period. So there's still some questions in it, and that's probably why we're still talking about it.
So let me follow that up. Just to play devil's advocate, if you're looking to change the style, why keep Greg Roman as your offensive coordinator, knowing this is what he does, right? Like, you run the ball a billion times. That's the Greg Roman offense. It's always the way it's been. It's always the way that it's going to be. If you're not sold on the style, wouldn't you want to change who the coordinator of the offense is?
Or you draft another quarterback as well and start grooming a different way. I'm not as familiar with you as far as what Greg did before he got there.
Yeah.
I tend to think that this wasn't always his style.
I mean, in Buffalo with Tyrod Taylor and San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick. I mean, this is.
Yeah, that's what he is.
Yeah, this is, and he's literally every year until last year, oddly enough, he's led the league in rushing in the top 5 in rushing attempts every year. He's been an offensive coordinator. He just didn't have a running back last year.
Right, I got you. Well, that is information that needs to be thrown into the equation as to why they're at $35 million, if that's true. So I guess time will tell. We've been saying this, like you said, for a couple of years now. I start to wonder if there is a deal to be made.
So,
You know, yeah.
I understand what you're saying, right? I guess this is the interesting side of it, right? Lamar is somebody is putting out there. Lamar is willing to go, to 2 franchise tags in order to try to get this done, and it feels to me like that's his way of saying, let's go ahead and skip. Let's skip to the part where if you're willing to pay me the amount that it's going to cost on a franchise tag, then we know that's what you think I'm worth. So let's skip ahead to that, and you just go ahead and give me that in annual average value on the contract. And I guess the follow-up question would be, if the Ravens are willing to franchise tag him next season, we know what the number is going to be. It's not going to be $30 million, and it's all going to come off the cap in 1 year. If you're willing to do that, why aren't you better off just going ahead and giving that number now and trying to give yourself some cap flexibility in the process?
Well, from the Ravens' point of view, that's probably about guarantees. If these are the facts that are in front of us, on a 1 year or franchise number, yes, it's a big cap number, which does eat up some cap, and there are some teams that do want to eat up cap, but it also reduces the guarantees. If he signs a longer-term deal at that number, there'll be $70, $80, $90 million guaranteed. So maybe that's the part of it that they're balking at, the longevity of a deal that would tie them to him for long term. And maybe there's some question if this is sustainable or not. Hey, we all know Lamar plays recklessly, and that's what makes him good. Maybe there's some question there as to a long-term deal being feasible based on just the durability factor in the way Lamar plays.
Again, being fair to Lamar, he's done an unbelievable job of avoiding the big hits, like an unreal job of avoiding those types of big hits downfield. And, of course, when he got hurt last year, it was on a pass play, right? It wasn't on a running play. So just in for the reason of full disclosure, I just want to make sure we say that. If you're Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are completely unwilling to do this, wouldn't you demand a trade at some point, Randy? Wouldn't you walk in and say, I'm not just going to play along with your game. This is about as quarterback needy as we've ever seen the NFL. I mean, there's maybe 10, 12 teams tops that feel really good about their quarterback position going into next year. There's closer to 10 teams that have no idea what their quarterback situation is going to be like next year. If you're Lamar Jackson and they're dragging their feet and it doesn't appear as though they are inclined to want to sign you long term, wouldn't you want to demand a trade looking at the quarterback market at the moment?
Well, I think a trade would make maybe sense financially. I guess the next question is, does it make sense football-wise? We know Lamar plays different. We know his scheme has to be a little different for his skill set to shine. That seems to me like a great fit with what you just said about Greg with Roman.
Right.
I mean, that is what it is. It seems like a fit, but I don't know. I think, hey, I drafted a guy in Seattle, Walter Jones, who played on a franchise tag, it seemed like endlessly, year after year after year, and he just kept betting on himself. And don't forget, that number keeps going up every year.
No question, right.
So the numbers there is, if you put a pencil to it, there is a daylight at the end of the tunnel, even if you use the franchise tag for multiple years. That makes sense for the player. So I don't know. I think it's a hard one to solve, not knowing exactly the feelings of the Ravens on the inside as the style they would prefer to play, because they're not going to find anybody better at this style than Lamar, that's for sure.
There's no doubt that that's true. And again, I think we've seen plenty to say that Lamar Jackson is a hell of a thrower of the football, too. He's not perfect. He's not the greatest thrower of the football we've ever seen, but he's a damn good one.
I agree.
I would almost put the same question to the flip side, right? If you're the Ravens and you're not committed to Lamar Jackson long term, at what point do you need to think about what might be out there on the trade market? Again, I'm not trying to say Lamar Jackson is Russell Wilson, right? But we also know that Russell Wilson has not been the same guy of late, and yet we know that Washington was offering multiple first-round picks to try to land Russell Wilson. I've just never seen a quarterback market like this, Randy, where there are so few teams around the – I mean, teams are begging 45-year-old Tom Brady to reconsider retirement because this is where we are. And I get it, he's a different animal. But if you're the Ravens at some point, if you're not committed long term, wouldn't you also be wise to say, man, could we come away with a 3 first-round picks? Could we come away with something that more than recoups value if we're not really interested in paying long term what it's going to cost to get Lamar Jackson anyway?
Well, I think that the quarterback market is complicated for sure, and I don't think it's as simple as someone giving 3 first-round picks. First-round picks are no guarantee to be replaced, to replace what you have. So it's like in the Russell Wilson case. You mentioned the Commanders offering a package. Because there's no quarterback option coming in return, I don't think the Seahawks would take 5 first-round picks.
Right.
They don't want to take a step back. So you've got to give them an option. Same thing with Lamar. They know what they have with Lamar, so they don't want to take a step back. They've got to get better than Lamar in order for them to trade him. And if not, they're going to be willing to ride it out. Don't forget, we talked about Dak Prescott for what seemed like 5 years as well, trying to sign his deal. So there is some precedent there of a team caving in and giving what they want. But I agree with you. I think if the Ravens had questions, they would have options available to them, of which I have not seen any real options yet, whether drafting or free agency or anything like that. So I think it's a marriage that is going to happen at some point. They've just dated a couple years longer than most of us thought before they got married.
It's all very weird to me, Randy. Like it's what I keep coming back to this, where everything about this is weird, right? Like there's no
the agent and the representation and all that as well. It's all awkward for sure.
No doubt. Every layer of this is very strange, and there's moments where I want to be critical of the Ravens, but I just don't know what's going on here. And to their credit, obviously, as you know, they're one of the best organizations at preventing that type of information from getting out, which is a bummer for us in the media. Not great news for us. But in the past, we had the benefit of being able to go to an agent and get that information. Well, as you pointed out, that's not the option here. So it's just simply not the way that things work. Randy Mueller, of course, former Saints and Dolphins general manager. To just reiterate what you just said, you still think that at some point this ends up working out. Like, as awkward as it is, you still think that at some point this will get done, whether it's now, whether it's 2 years into the franchise tag, whatever it is, that you still think that ultimately the Ravens and Lamar Jackson will continue this marriage.
I do, because I don't see options on either side, either Lamar's side or like we just talked about with the Ravens, that make any more sense. So they're going to ride it out till they find either better options or make a deal. Those are the two questions. And you just said it. There's half the league looking for quarterbacks. I can't imagine Baltimore will be willing to jump in that fray. That doesn't make any sense. So I just don't think there are better options. I think they'll end up coming to a deal at some point. Just a matter of when, that's all.
All right, Randy Mueller, what's going on MuellerFootball.com and everything else in your world?
It's going good. Doing a little podcasting with Mike Sando still on the Athletic Forum, where we talk about things GM-wise. A lot of stuff that you and I talk about. So it's keeping me busy, getting ready for free agency and the draft. So a lot of things to talk about.
At Randy Mueller _ on Twitter is how you follow him. As I mentioned, MuellerFootball.com. Randy, you've been so good to us. Always appreciate you taking the time for us. Thank you for the conversation, and look forward to doing it again real soon, all right?
Always enjoy it, guys. Thank you.
Randy Mueller, former Saints and Dolphins GM. Appreciate him taking the time for us, as always. Look, again, and I wrote about it yesterday at PressBoxOnline.com. We can keep saying this till we're blue in the face. His idea that, are you not committed to the style? Well, if you're not committed to the style, what are you doing with Greg Roman as your offensive coordinator? That's what he does. He's not going to be a guy that throws the ball 50 times a game. If you want to do that, you shouldn't have Greg Roman as your offensive coordinator. Committing to Greg Roman as your offensive coordinator suggests that you genuinely believe you can win a Super Bowl doing things this way. And you've come close-ish, obviously, in winning a boatload of games in 2019 and getting to back-to-back divisional rounds of the playoffs. You have sniffed the ability to do that. You haven't proven that you can, but you've come darn close. And you didn't have any running backs last year. So running back last year gets thrown out. You didn't have a running back. So that side of it doesn't necessarily work for me. And we've continued to see Lamar Jackson evolve as a passer. Clearly, he's got to be better against the blitz. We all know that. He has to be better than he showed against the blitz for 4 games last season. But we've seen him evolve as a passer. We all saw the Colts game this year. We all watched it with our eyes. It was one of the greatest passing performances. Statistically, it was the greatest passing performance post-halftime in NFL history. It's one of the greatest passing performances we've ever seen. Sheerly passing. So I don't know what you're dragging your feet about.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Randy on this one. A, the Ravens don't want to be that one of those teams that's looking for a quarterback. B, I think they're too smart to franchise tag him and have a $50 million cap hit when probably the first 2 years of his contract, they can get him for.
Then why are you
less.
offering $35 million? That's not going to get it done.
I think it's more so a starting point, like you said.
Maybe, but with a player that doesn't appear to be all that much of a rush, who's sort of saying, look, I come back to, this comes off to me, we'll talk about posturing again with baseball here in a bit. The posturing side of this to me is, if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm going to posture. Go ahead. I'll play on 2 franchise tags because I know what the value of the franchise tag is. And once you say I'm worth that amount of money, then there's no negotiating left to do. There's nothing here. That's what I'm worth. You've decided that, not me. You made that decision. So if that's the decision that you're going to make, what are we waiting for?
Maybe like when Michael Scott quoted Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
If
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Just throw it out there. Hey, man, any chance you don't like money? Like,
you do this, we'll sign this guy. You know?
Come on, man. Like, this is what makes all of this so weird. And again, it is possible that it's nothing more than, just throwing it out there. Look, let's go from here. We all know it's not going to work, but we got to start somewhere, right? But if he's really in no rush with negotiating, I just could come back to, it's weird. It's a weird vibe that I have all about all of this. Every layer of information makes it weirder. It's very, very strange. Today's show. But I'm also not sold on it being about, if the Ravens don't know that they're committed to Lamar Jackson long term, then they 1,000% should be looking to move him. You can say everything you want about, well, the quarterback market doesn't look good for you either. You're never going to get as much value for Lamar Jackson as you're getting right now. If you're not committed to him long term, there are way, way, way too many teams that need quarterbacks at the moment. And you still have another year. You still have the 5th year on his contract. That team still has the ability to franchise him. If you're not committed, if in any world you're not committed to Lamar Jackson, move him. But it's nuts. It's nuts to not be committed to Lamar Jackson.
The PR hit, man. I just think he's so loved.
The PR hit of this is going to be the same way if you wait another year and do it. What's the difference going to be?
I mean, overall,
you're just hoping that he sucks at that point, and then when you lose him, you can't get anything for him.
He ain't gonna suck. I'll tell you that much.
But then what are we doing?
Exactly.
That's what I keep coming back to. If for some reason you're not committed, do it. But it's insane to not be committed. It's nuts. It's bonkers. Badass crazy. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy Football. Speaking of crazy, if you're not playing Underdog, you are crazy. Plenty of contests, even though football season's been over for a while. Basketball, hockey, hopefully baseball at some point. Use the code PRESSBOX. Make your first deposit up to $100. They'll match it with free money for you to play with. UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app. Talk some hoops. Patrick Stevens joins us next. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Glory Days Grill's St. Patrick's menu is now in full swing, and it's their most popular seasonal menu all year. New in 2022 are their smoky thigh wings with Guinness grilling sauce, a house-made Guinness barbecue sauce. Fan favorites also include their corned beef and cabbage, the shepherd's pie with Guinness braised ground beef, the Glory Days Reuben, and the Rachel. Enjoy a pint of Guinness or Guinness Baltimore Blonde. The St. Patrick's menu is available for the whole month of March. Come in for great food, cold beer, and basketball. Find out more about Glory Days Grill and get your order in online at glorydaysgrill.com.
The newest edition of Pressbox is available now. On the cover, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Maryland men's basketball's 2002 NCAA Tournament Championship, as Gary Williams reflects on how the program rose from the ashes of NCAA sanctions to the pinnacle of the sport, and why his perspective of the title run has changed now 2 decades later. Plus, Juan Dixon, Lonnie Baxter, and the rest of the team relive the moments that ultimately led them to cutting down the nets in Atlanta. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farms stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
If you miss anything, don't forget that you can find whole shows later on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon Podcasts. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Back in here on GCR. Of course, it's Tuesday. Every Tuesday, we like to talk some college hoops, a little lacrosse as well, with our friend from the Washington Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine, and who you follow on Twitter at Discourse, D1S Course. He is our friend Patrick Stevens. He's back with us now here on GCR. Good morning, Patrick. How are you, sir?
I'm well, Glenn. How are you?
I'm all right. Obviously, a disappointing night for Towson basketball as they fell to Delaware. Patrick, it's unfair that a team gets judged based on what happened in one game. Unfortunately, it's the nature of the sport, particularly in a one-bid league. This is the way that it goes. It changes nothing about what a remarkable season it was for Towson, but there's no getting around just how disappointing this was for them last night in D.C.
Yeah, and you know what? When you look back on their 3 conference losses, they got beat late by UNC Wilmington, and then they had 2 games against Drexel and Northeastern where they couldn't make a 3 to save themselves.
Yeah.
And, the latter problem resurfaced last night against Delaware. They were 4 of 23 from three-point range. Charles Thompson had a bum ankle. They really couldn't throw it into him as much. He still led them in scoring, and I thought he put up a valiant effort with 13 and 6, but without him as much of a threat, and Cam Holden was ailing a little bit too, but their other guys just did not put the ball in the bucket. It's really that simple. Their other 5 guys that play the most minutes besides Thompson were a combined 9 of 41 from the floor, and that just isn't going to get it done. So certainly I'm sure a lot of those guys are going to be replaying that game in their minds for some time to come. They spot Delaware, the 16-point lead in the first half, got it down to 2, just couldn't get it done. And you got to be better than 4 of 23 from 3. And Pat Scarry had the thing sized up pretty well after the game. A lot of what you were just saying, that it was it doesn't take away from a great season, but there's no doubt that that's a program that has to feel pretty disappointed. I mean, this really was their best shot in 3 decades to make the NCAA tournament, and just could not get it done.
They do get to play more basketball as they'll be part of the NIT. Looking ahead, they are on paper, they should have Charles Thompson back. They should have Nick Timberlake back. Of course, this is college athletics now. We never know who's coming back anywhere at this point. But on paper, it seems like they should have not everyone, but some pretty important pieces back to try to build around to make a run again next season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a guy like a Jason Gibson, who's also going to be back. So I look at a guy. You mentioned Timberlake for sure. It's a pretty exceptional group that they were able to mold together. Now, I think the thing that's worth mentioning is that that was a very deft bit of combining guys that were holdovers and guys from the portal, and it's not easy to replicate that. And so, like just about everybody else in that league, there's going to be guys coming and going probably. And I think that Towson has sort of reestablished itself when you kind of look where it's been. You could throw last year out, basically. Like last year was just a pandemic mess. And so, if that's not in there, then this is a team that's won 20 games or more now 3 times since 2016, 4 times since 2014. There's a 19 and an 18 win season in there, and chances are Towson will be able to get back to at least being a top half or remain a top half of the league team moving forward. But there's obviously a lot of moving parts. I mean, at the start of this season, I don't think anybody thought Towson and UNC Wilmington were going to finish in the top half of that league, and they finished 1-2. So it's an unpredictable league, and heavens knows which pieces will be coming and going on any of those rosters in the coming months.
Let's take a look at some of the teams that still have opportunities this week, and we'll begin with Navy because they're playing in the Patriot League Championship game tomorrow night up at Colgate. And there's an adage that it's difficult to beat a team 3 times in one season, and obviously Navy is hoping that continues to be true. They played Colgate a little bit tougher to end the regular season. Is there reason to be optimistic for Navy, knowing just how good this Colgate team has been this season?
They can be optimistic because their defense travels. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at when Navy has lost games, I mean, really the 2 Colgate games are the only times in league play that they've really gotten roasted a bit. I mean, they and even against the second game against Colgate, it wasn't quite as bad. That was a 70 possession game that Colgate scored 74 in. So I think for Navy, even though they scored 85 against BU, even though they got to 70 against American, the thing that has sort of defined them all season is their defense. And so if they're ready to go defensively against a really good Colgate offense, I mean, this is strength against strength here. I mean, it's the best offense in the Patriot League by a fairly healthy margin against the best defense in the Patriot League, again, by a fairly healthy margin. And so if their defense can hold up, I think they can be in this game tomorrow night. And if they were to win that, it would certainly be a great story for Ed DeChellis,
no doubt,
and the midshipmen who have not been to the tournament since 1998.
By the way, if you missed it last night, the Navy women's team pulled off an upset, and you should go search for Jen Coleman right now on Twitter to see the game-winning shot that she banked in at the buzzer in order for them to knock off the top seed in the Patriot League tournament last night. Patrick Stevens is with us here on GCR. Patrick, UMBC plays in the America East semifinals tomorrow night. And I'm not trying to look ahead. It just feels very difficult for me to fathom anybody having much of a shot against Vermont in that tournament anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, if you're sitting there measuring success and you're pretty much anybody other than Vermont in that league, being the 2 seed in the tournament and making the conference finals in a year with a new coach and a fair number of new players that cycled through, you would have to feel pretty good about that. So if UMBC wins tomorrow against Hartford, a team that they swept, beat them by 4 at home, beat them by 7 on the road. If they win that game, then I think they have to feel pretty good about what they've accomplished and really feel pretty loose going on up to Burlington in all likelihood. I mean, Vermont does have to play Binghamton tonight. But when you look at what Vermont has done for the most part, especially let's look at what they've done since their only loss in league play, which was to Hartford. Won by 21, won by 27, won by 17, edged UMass Lowell by a point, won by 19, and then, oh, by the way, just won by 39 in the first round of the conference tournament as they turn it on up there. It's a great program, and obviously the road to an America East title runs through Vermont. It did the last time that UMBC won it. Yep. So, I think that the good thing for UMBC, beyond simply finally beating UMass Lowell, who had knocked them off twice earlier in the season, I was a little concerned, with their injury issues. Keandre Kennedy didn't play last week against Binghamton in the regular season finale. He was back and scored 17 points. Darnell Rogers didn't play against Binghamton. He came back and scored 23 last night to go with 4 boards, 3 assists, and 5 steals. So it is kind of an older UMBC team, and they obviously have a great deal of offensive potency. They've hit the 90-point mark in 3 of their last 4 games and 4 times since February 16th in 6 games in that span. So if they can pour it on a bit again on offense, they're going to give themselves a chance to make that trip to Burlington, and have a shot there on Saturday morning, that great 11 a.m. America East tip time.
You never know.
So
you never
you
know.
never know.
I certainly don't think this is as good of a UMBC team as the 2018 team was. But to your point, nobody thought UMBC was going up and beating Vermont that year either. So we'll just file that away and keep it in mind. The MEAC tournament also gets underway here for the local teams on Thursday. Or no, it's one of them plays tomorrow, correct?
Coppin plays tomorrow.
Coppin
fell to the 7th seed because it got swept by Maryland Eastern Shore. So it gets to play a Howard team that it swept. It's been a weird year for Coppin State. So they tied for 6th, end up the 7th seed. 2 of their 7 victories this year were against the 2nd-seeded Bison of Howard. And so it'll be curious, I think, to me, to see if Jesse Zarzuela is back for Coppin State. He's been out here really for almost basically the entire last month of the regular season. If he's healthy, that gives them an added bit of offensive firepower. But Howard has also played fairly well too, even though they lost to Norfolk the other night. Basically, Howard went 0-4 against Norfolk and Coppin, and then went 9-1 against everybody else in the league. So they've done a nice job with Elijah Hawkins, the freshman, Steve Settle, and of course Kyle Foster, just an immensely improved player for the Bison this year. So that's a tough game for Coppin. And Morgan State playing well now, has won 4 in a row to close out the regular season. The defense has started to get it done a little bit here. They smothered UMES last week, then beat Coppin in a revenge game last Thursday. So they get South Carolina State, a team that they swept in the first game in their tournament. They win that. They'll probably see Norfolk State, which is facing an O for the MEAC, Delaware State, in its quarterfinal.
Then the other team is, of course, Maryland. And
oh yeah.
I don't know what to say. They have a chance too, but I think that's about the last thing I can say about that particular topic.
Well, for the short term, let's only focus on Thursday here.
Yeah.
Like Michigan State has only won 3 games outside of East Lansing since Christmas.
It's kind of wild. That's kind of wild.
They've only at Northwestern, at Wisconsin, and at Maryland. They lost their last 5 road games. I know they beat Maryland and certainly played well right out of the chute, but they haven't been playing great.
Well, and they tried to yak up a 20-point lead in the process.
They before that Maryland game, they had lost 8 of their previous 10. It's not a vintage Michigan State team. And the funny thing is that when they rolled through College Park, they came in, they were 16-4 and had just blistered Michigan, and you're like, well, maybe they're rounding into form. And they almost gave up a big lead in that game too. I think it was a 15-point lead that got down to 2 back on February the 1st, and then after that they lost 8 of their next 10. So I think Maryland has a shot given how feisty they've been, and given the possibility that a Ayala Russell monster day could come at any time.
Sure.
That is not a situation that's impossible for Maryland. Now, trying to win 4 games in 4 days with a highly inconsistent team, probably not going to happen. But, they got the 10 seed. They avoided the first day of the tournament, which I think is a victory in and of itself for this particular team. And so, we'll see what happens to Maryland outside of Indianapolis. But as somebody I know has said on a few occasions, the real season starts when the season ends. And the coaching search really adds greater scrutiny moving forward.
No doubt about it. All right. Away from the local stuff, biggest storylines to you as we head towards the selection show on Sunday nights?
The funny thing is that it doesn't feel like a year where there's a lot of teams that are really at the edge of the field. That there's not the Big Ten has Indiana and maybe Rutgers and Michigan, but most of the other power conferences feel fairly settled. There's Wake Forest in the ACC. There's Oklahoma maybe in the Big 12. Whoever wins Florida or Texas A&M in the SEC has a puncher's chance if they can knock off somebody else. There's not really much out in the Pac-12 unless Oregon or Colorado can make a deep run. So I'll just sort of default to what the major story of the entire season has been, which is, all right, well, Coach K just lost in his final game at Cameron Indoor. Does he and Duke win in his final ACC tournament in noted ACC stronghold Brooklyn?
Yes.
So I think that's going to be something that draws some attention. But if you're looking for leagues to pay attention to, where maybe there's a weird result in the offing, look at the Mountain West, where there's a handful of teams that wouldn't be at-large picks but are still good, like UNLV and Utah State. Look at the A10 where weird things almost always happen. St. Bonaventure is a tested team. And then look at the American Athletic Conference where there's 3 teams in pretty decent shape right now. SMU, Houston, and Memphis. Memphis playing really, really well right now.
Phew.
But is there somebody else that could possibly be sitting there on Sunday as a potential bid snatcher? The American usually has, the threat of that, and it might happen again this year.
And obviously already some good stories like the Chattanooga. The finish last night was tremendous. And former UMBC assistant Griff Aldrich is in the NCAA tournament.
He is indeed at Longwood, as Longwood makes its first NCAA tournament appearance. And as someone pointed out to me, with Longwood making the tournament, that means that William & Mary is now the only team in the state of Virginia that has never made the tournament. William & Mary, one of the forgotten 4 schools that was part of the original Division I that has yet to make an NCAA tournament appearance. But
there you go, Patrick Stevens. The lacrosse side of things, I would imagine Towson probably feeling a little bit better right now than they did, maybe a week and a half ago.
Yeah, Towson has to feel better with the victories over Loyola and UMBC. I think Loyola has to be kind of wondering where things are headed after losing that Towson game and then, not playing all that great. I mean, they lost 14-12 or they beat Lafayette 14-12 in their Patriot League opener. So that's a 1-4 Loyola team that has Duke coming to town on Saturday in probably one of the more high-profile games around here this weekend.
No doubt about that. That is a one I'll be looking forward to, but phew, we'll see. It's been a struggle. That's all. It's been a struggle on this side of things. All right, sir, you ready to play our game? Let's do it. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams that this particular player has played for? We begin with a 5-team guy, and as you know, these have gotten more and more difficult, but it's what it is. 3 of these teams he was with for a very long time, and there's a ton of cameo appearances. 1 All-Star game for Cliff Floyd is our first choice today.
Cliff Floyd, 5 teams?
No, actually 7 teams. 7
teams for Cliff Floyd.
3 that he played for at least 4 years, and then literally a bunch of. There's like 1 full season in there the rest of the way with the other 4 teams.
Dear heavens.
Yeah,
well,
I know.
Let's knock out the 3 obvious ones, right?
Yep.
That's Montreal, New York, Mets, and Florida.
Exactly right, yes.
So where else did Cliff Floyd play? Wow.
By the way, the longest was 108 games. The other appearances, 80 games, 47 games, and there was a 10-game stint in there.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. Was he in Colorado for a second?
Not Colorado, no.
Okay, so he's not in Colorado. Was he in Atlanta for a second?
No, unfortunately not in Atlanta.
Okay. How about because everybody goes there, the Dodgers?
I understood you were going to guess that. No, you want to throw one more out there to try to get over 50%.
Let's throw the Angels out there as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. Paul, you remember a few?
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay was one for 80 games.
I think he played in Boston, didn't he?
He did play in Boston as well for 47 games. The other 2 stops, San Diego and the Cubs. San Diego for 10 games. So let's wash that taste out of our mouth. Let's move on from that immediately, and we'll give you one that's a bit more accessible. Give me the 4 teams for Nomar Garciaparra.
Oh, wow. Nomar was a Red Sox,
Most
right?
certainly
Sure,
was,
right?
Yeah, he was
a Dodger.
Yes,
sure.
he was.
He was in Oakland, right?
He was in Oakland, indeed.
End?
Yep.
And so Nomar's other stop.
Oh, between Boston and the Dodgers, he spent a season and a half here.
Yeah, he was traded there, right?
Yes.
In the middle of that. Where was Nomar sent? Where was Nomar banished to? Am I thinking San Francisco here?
Oh, no. The Cubs. The Cubs.
That's right.
Yeah, the Cubs were the stop.
I knew that. I thought you were going to give me a chance to say
no. All right. Give me your schedule for the week, Patrick Stevens.
Lots of A10 basketball. We'll also check out UMBC on tomorrow night.
At Discourse, D1S Course on Twitter is how you follow him. Of course, you can see his stuff in the Washington Post and at USA Lacrosse Magazine. Patrick Stevens, thank you so much. Appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Awesome, Glenn. Take care.
All right, Patrick Stevens joining us here on GCR as he does every week. All right, today's show also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Make the most out of every day in a Toyota RAV4, available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today. I want to talk more and get some of your responses about Calvin Ridley and some of these insane comparisons that people have made that just don't hold water. Also, I want to talk a little bit more about the fact that the sides are getting back together to discuss things baseball-wise today, so we will do that as well. That's all coming up. It is a Tuesday edition. And Cass's Top 5. What's the theme for Cass's Top 5 today? What do you have?
It's my weird comfort foods.
Weird comfort foods. All right, I look forward to that. That's all on the way. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets with Glenn Clark and Paul Valley every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook GM Bruce Billick and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and even a few winners. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday at 11:40 a.m. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
Glory Days Grill's St. Patrick's menu is now in full swing, and it's their most popular seasonal menu all year. New in 2022 are their smoky thigh wings with Guinness grilling sauce, a house-made Guinness barbecue sauce. Fan favorites also include their corned beef and cabbage, the shepherd's pie with Guinness braised ground beef, the Glory Days Reuben, and the Rachel. Enjoy a pint of Guinness or Guinness Baltimore Blonde. The St. Patrick's menu is available for the whole month of March. Come in for great food, cold beer, and basketball. Find out more about Glory Days Grill and get your order in online at glorydaysgrill.com.
It's another cold winter here in Baltimore, but this time there's no hot stove to warm you up. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and while there may be no activity in the world of baseball, I'll still be here every week with my co-host Zach Goodman to give you all the latest in the CBA negotiations as teams look to get back on the field in time for spring training. You can watch us live every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or facebook.com/PressBoxSports and listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. So tune in every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon for the latest in baseball coverage right here on the Bat Around.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
We can't imagine why you'd want to, but you can watch GCR live. It's at facebook.com/PressBoxSports and try to guess whether these guys are wearing any pants.
If you missed it last night, Stan the Fan Charles and Ross Grimsley were talking baseball on Facebook Live with none other than the great Tim Kirkjian. You can find that show right now by going to facebook.com/PressBoxSports and clicking on the videos tab, or by going to PressBoxOnline.com/video and find it there. Stan the Fan, Ross Grimsley talk baseball every Monday with you. And again, Tim Kirkjian last night, a tremendous conversation as always. I know Stan was working on a really big guest for his other show this week. Don't know if that was going to be able to come through, and so I'll let you know what else he might be doing. But it would have been a really, really significant one for sure. All right, a couple of things that I want to get to, then we'll get to Cass's top 5 for the week. One, I have no problem with the response to Calvin Ridley being something along the lines of, as I alluded to with Randy Mueller, there are guys that get popped with domestic violence and they don't get anything, and Calvin Ridley's getting a year for betting on football. There's nothing wrong with saying that if what your response is the guys that get popped for domestic violence should be getting more. That's fine. Trying to suggest that means that players should be able to bet on football games is insane. We all know that the NFL has a problem related to domestic violence and how they've handled it. That's overwhelming. It's embarrassing. It's pathetic. It's sad. It's all of the above. They have failed time and time again when it comes to the issue of domestic violence. And calling them out for that is something we should do constantly. But it doesn't mean that suddenly they should say, well, we don't punish anybody for anything. There is certainly a problem that exists within society when it comes to domestic violence, that we don't know how to handle things when evidence is presented, but there is no criminal charge. We haven't figured out what we're supposed to do there. And I don't have a perfect answer for you. I can't solve it alone other than to say, well, it sure as hell ain't what they've done. Domestic violence and sexual assault should be treated far more seriously, and 1,000% the NFL has failed when it comes to those particular issues. But there's no, well, this means they shouldn't give Calvin Ridley a punishment or a serious punishment. Stop it. You're embarrassing yourself. We have to know why it is that players can't bet on football games. We have to understand that. Now, a secondary comparison that's been made, I brought up the insider trading thing. It was brought up that Congress people are allowed to still own stocks and trade stocks, despite the fact that they're literally making laws that impact the stock market. I have no idea what the hell that's supposed to do with football, but personally, yeah, I get it. I get that it's always been weird to me that you could be someone that could make laws and have insider information about what laws might be coming, and yet you're able to trade stocks. That's always been weird to me. I've always been in favor of all politicians no longer being able to hold private stocks. But it's a different conversation. I don't know what the NFL is supposed to do about that. The idea that because Congress doesn't do the right thing, the NFL shouldn't either, should just allow for essentially insider trading. Again, I'd love to solve all of the world's problems. I am for solving more of the world's problems. But I have no idea what it's supposed to do with Calvin Ridley. I mean, how can you punish Calvin Ridley? There's a war going on. Like, what are these things supposed to have to do with each other? The NFL has made it very clear. You're a football player, you can't bet on NFL games. If you do, you're going to get significant punishment because we got to make it very clear to everyone else. You cannot bet on NFL games. It's not hard. Steve, Glenn, how would you feel if it was a Ravens player? The exact same way, Steve.
Do they not listen to the show?
I mean, like, I don't know who you're talking to. Including the most important one, if any Ravens player was suspended a year for betting on football games, I would say as they should be.
You'd probably be harder on them.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I would be more frustrated about it.
Yeah.
Like, I would probably talk more about how they're letting their team down. Like, sure, I probably would bring those things up, I guess. I clearly don't care about Atlanta. I don't care Calvin Ridley's letting his team down. Not that I think they had much of a chance of doing anything next year anyway. There is no, this is the sickness that we have. We have a sickness where we think that these things are based around our fandoms or our personal interests, instead of being able to figure out if something's right or something's wrong. I get why football players can't bet on NFL games. I understand that. It does not take much to figure that out. You don't have to think all that hard to understand why it's a rule that exists. And it's different for them than it is for me. By the way, extend that. It should very well be that no general manager, no one that works in a front office, no scout, any of those people should be able to bet on NFL games. And they, too, should lose their jobs if they do. Because they, too, can have access to information. And somebody goes, isn't that what we're all looking for? That's the reason why they put out injury reports, because we're all looking for information. They can have information the rest of us don't. Everybody gets the same access to an injury report. If you're betting on a football game without looking at an injury report, that's on you. That's your fault. Guy raises his hand. I've done it plenty of times. Plenty of times. It was like, oh, man, I bet on that game and forgot so-and-so wasn't playing. That's on me. It's the reason why the NFL is supposed to take it very seriously when a player doesn't report an injury. When we find out afterwards that someone was having surgery and that the team didn't report that injury. Because gambling is a big part of the success of the NFL and all major American professional sports. You can't do it. So it's not just players. Anybody involved in the organization that might have access to additional information or that might have the ability to influence the outcome of games should not be betting on NFL games, and extend that. Same thing for baseball players and the organization. Same thing for basketball, for hockey, for anyone. You can't do it. Now college sports, 100%. I don't know if they post the lines for Stevenson women's soccer anywhere, but Cass can't bet on them. You just can't do it. It's that simple. You can't bet on the sport you participate in. I don't know why this is hard. I don't know why we're going to such lengths to try to make it seem like this is controversial or that this is strange or anything along those lines. We can figure it out. Let's solve the other problems when we solve them. Let's be more strict when it comes to domestic violence. Let's be more strict when it comes to sexual assault. Let's do all of those things too. But to think that Calvin Ridley shouldn't get significant punishment, stop it. Stop it. This is embarrassing. I mean, it's embarrassing, our response to this particular issue, or that it somehow has anything to do with the NFL working. Oh, well, the NFL, this was their official gambling partner. And it was okay for Calvin Ridley to sign up, as long as he didn't bet on NFL games. Not hard. I don't know what we're doing, why we're trying this hard. I don't get it. Anyway, so there's that, too. Sides back together today. And baseball, this is an important day. Because if today they can get a deal done, they can still play 162 games, which is super weird because a week ago I was told they weren't playing 162 games. It's almost like that was nothing more than posturing. It's real weird. Did anybody say that when they announced that? Because what was really odd to me, I don't know if you've heard this before, if you listen to this show, is how everyone across the country just regurgitated that information without thinking critically. Without saying, this is nonsense, there's no reason why they can't play 162 games, and it would be silly for the players to just accept that and not try to bargain it back into whatever agreement they came up to. And since we already know that was nonsense, that wasn't anything, it meant nothing, it wasn't worth the internet space that it was printed on, you know what I'll say about today's deadline? The exact same. It's all posturing. All of it. And going back to brainless, we brainlessly pass it along as if it's actual information. When we already know it's false! They already canceled games that they're literally telling us weren't canceled. We know it's bull ass. But we continue to share it uncritically. I know I'm an old man screaming at a cloud right now. I get it. I understand that. But how stupid are we? And this isn't just the fault of Major League Baseball. It's the fault of the media. And I don't like blaming the media because I am the media. But we have failed in how we've reported these things because we've pretended like they're real. When any ounce of critical thought last week would have said, there's no reason why they would just cancel 6 games arbitrarily. That's nuts. What are we doing here? But because we don't think critically, we just regurgitate that information. We just pass it along as if it was fact. Baseball canceled 6 games as much as I'm Brad Pitt.
I do love Brad Pitt.
It doesn't make me Brad Pitt. Doesn't. I mean, I'm better looking, obviously. I've got that going for
I think
me.
he'd be a cool guy to be friends with.
Brad Pitt, by the way, is like damn near 6 years old at this point.
Yeah.
It's really kind of crazy to me. Like, yeah. You know how old Brad Pitt is?
He's like 50,
Brad
57
Pitt's, I think he's
years
57 years old.
Yeah.
We saw the trailer for the Sandra Bullock film, and he's not even 57. He's 58.
Mm-hmm.
He's 58 years old.
He and John Stamos may be the two best looking men.
Don't
in the
get me
world.
wrong. Like when he's not wearing a shirt in the Sandra Bullock trailer, I'm like, it looks incredible. God bless. I mean, like, good for Brad Pitt. He's 58 years old. It's crazy to me.
By the way,
I didn't think he would ever be 58.
did you watch that movie, The Unforgivable, with Sandra Bullock on Netflix?
I don't think I did.
Watched it on the plane on the way home. Very good.
I don't even remember it. I don't even remember which one that one was.
It's the one where she's in prison for 20 years and she gets out and like everybody keeps.
Maybe I vaguely remember that.
It's
All right.
very good.
All right.
I recommend checking.
I got other things that are higher on the list, but at some point I might look at it. I haven't watched the first episode of Winning Time yet. I got to do that.
Me either.
I got to get on that. Anyway, the moral of the story being that this means nothing either. And we're going to regurgitate it the same way. We're just going to brainlessly keep saying the same things. Well, if they don't get an agreement done today, they're going to cancel more games. This doesn't mean anything. And we already know that because they've literally gone back on their first cancellation of games.
It's the third time they've extended a deadline.
How do we keep falling for this crap? How do we keep tweeting these things non-critically? How do we keep doing this and not saying, we know it doesn't mean anything, but this is the threat they're making? We understand it's an utterly empty threat, but they're still threatening it. How do we not do that? How do we continue to accept these things as being factual when they're clearly not? If they don't get an agreement done today, you know when they could get an agreement done? Tomorrow. And why would it be that they'd be capable of playing 162 games today and not tomorrow? Again, I understand fully there comes a time where the calendar will not allow for 162 games to be played. I get that. But it ain't on March 8th. It's not on March 12th either. It's not on March 15th. You get into April, it starts getting tricky. I mean, it does. It starts getting tricky. You can, of course, start the season on April 15th and literally just move the World Series back 2 weeks. It can be done. But you get any further than that, it's really tough. It's really tough to fathom them pushing the season back to have the World Series wrap up at Thanksgiving. I think it almost becomes sort of the cutoff. Like the World Series has got to be wrapped up by like November 20th. Somewhere around there. If you're going to do a 162-game season. Especially, I don't even know at this point how many games you need for the playoffs, because I guess we're back to 14 teams. I guess that's where we're going to go, is there's going to be 14 teams. So I don't think it requires more days. I mean, it's just more teams participating in the first round.
Do you think there'd be any chance of them moving the World Series to neutral sites where the weather's better?
Yeah,
if that were to happen?
I think that I do think that at some point they'll just say, let's not screw with this. Let's just do 150 games this year, and we'll get back to 162 next year. I think it's more likely that they agree to shorten the season at that point and they do a neutral site World Series in order to pull it off. I just think they realize that at some point there is a point at which it's already difficult for baseball when you get to the postseason and you're up against football anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're adding in basketball started. Now you're adding in people making plans for the holidays, things along those lines. I think Thanksgiving is a point at which you want to have everything cut off.
Right.
Like, you just, no matter what the weather is, you don't really want to screw with tradition. You don't really want to screw with people's you have TV partners that make it awkward, right? Like when you want to keep doing this and Fox comes to you and is like, hey, dude, we got football we're running. Like, we can't work around your schedule. You know, like, this is what we got. This is what's available. You want to play you want to play a World Series game at 4 p.m, you can do it, but that's what we've got available. At some point, there are partners involved, and Thanksgiving has always felt like you must have it wrapped up by then. I really think that's pushing it to say Thanksgiving.
I think that's pushing it, yeah.
But, I don't think we have seen before, it's not the end of the world if the World Series lingers into the start of November. So there's not really a significant difference between November 1st and November 15th. I get it. The argument is, if the Yankees are in the World Series, if a cold weather team is in the World Series, it's that much colder on November 15th than it is on November 1st. But, it's negligible, right? Like, they've played World Series in cold temperatures.
Right.
Like, we have seen that happen before. It's not ideal, but it could be done. I think that you acknowledge that that's the end of it. I mean, like, if Minnesota got into the World Series, there'd be a real problem playing at anything later than November 15th. Why they don't have a dome on their stadium
Makes no sense.
Beyond me, but it's the way it goes. Can't do anything about that. All right, let's get into Cass's Top 5. Cass's Top 5 this week is brought to you by the new print issue of Pressbox, which is available right now for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Pressbox. Read it all. PressboxOnline.com. You see Gary Williams on the cover. Inside, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Maryland's run to the 2002 National Championship. Go pick it up right now, the new print issue of Pressbox. Weird comfort foods, you say, Cass?
Yeah, I'll start with the first one though. That's
Wait.
not that weird.
Yeah, so 5-1. This is the way we do it.
I know, but
the
this
least
one
weird
I
to the
couldn't,
weirdest.
Like, I didn't do weirdest in that. I just did what I eat the most.
Okay,
Like
all
which
right,
one's
all right,
my
all right, whatever.
go-tos.
Your list. Your
yeah,
list.
Yeah, my list.
Yeah.
Okay, so the least weird one I would say is pickles. It's like my comfort food.
Literally nothing weird about pickles
We love
whatsoever.
pickles on this show.
My
I know,
God.
but except I can't do the I have to have pickle chips, and it has to be a certain brand. Like I can't.
Why can't you do pickle spears?
What?
What?
No.
Okay, now this does make it weird.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I get the pickle chip thing. They're easier for
I
snacking.
I can understand liking pickle chips. Who doesn't like
And,
pickle
I also
chips?
like drinking,
I can't fathom
pickle juice.
that reaction to pickle spears makes no sense.
It's gross to me. I like fried pickles. Anything pickled chips, I can't do.
That doesn't make you like pickles.
It's
Why?
the texture of the slimy softness and then the crunchiness. I can't do it.
It's a very weird bit, Cass.
Great hangover food, by the way. Ramen noodles and pickle juice.
This is what
not mixed together.
This is what my fridge looks like. That's what
Love
that's what my
pickles.
fridge looks
It's
like
my
right now.
go-to snack.
The horseradish, jalapeno, sriracha, Cool Ranch, and taco pickles from. Actually, you know who brought me these? This was a gift from Drew Miller's dad. He
Aw,
knows how much I
that's
love
so
pickles.
nice.
He brought these down for me from Pennsylvania, and
Can
I
I-
appreciate it greatly.
Can I interrupt for breaking news?
Is it really breaking?
Yeah, it's Aaron Rodgers has agreed to a 4-year, $200 million deal with the Packers.
Not surprising at all. That's exactly kind of what we saw coming in the last couple of weeks, that it was going to be $50 million a year annual average value, and everything seemed to be pointing to him going back to the Packers. Everything seemed to be pointing. In fact, the word in the last week was everybody thought this was going to be a really exciting quarterback market, and they're all going to be very disappointed. Everyone is going to be disappointed when they find out. The Seahawks didn't bite at multiple first-round picks for Russell Wilson. There is at some point you got to a place where you're like, if you're Aaron Rodgers, why are you moving on?
Mm-hmm.
What are you moving on for? The Packers are willing to spend the money to keep you around and make you happy. What is it that you're moving on for? Now they've got another problem. Somebody might at this point try to trade for Jordan Love, because that's how bad the quarterback situation is around the NFL.
It's going to be Washington.
I think they keep doing the thing that they do, which is just continue to trot out some. Mitchell Trubisky is my bet for Washington. Continues to be my bet for that they go the Mitchell Trubisky route. But yeah, it's not surprising. The word was that $50 million is going to be the number hit, and that's what makes the $35 million thing for Lamar Jackson so offensive. This is where the quarterback. That you think that it was crazy that they would go $43 million for Josh Allen. That might ultimately turn out to be a discount. It might be that they look back on it and say, boy, we should have gotten in before that, because once more quarterback numbers start coming in, that's where you got to go in order to keep them around. And that impacts what the franchise tag would cost. That impacts all of those things. The word is that with the Rams redo Stafford's deal, it's likely to be in the same neighborhood. This is the world now.
It's a going rate for a quarterback.
You either have a quarterback or you don't. And the majority of the teams in the NFL right now don't have a quarterback. You got one, you got to pay him. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers stays with the Packers, who are going to tag. They're using the tag on Devontae Adams, so they're keeping the band together, and they're going back after it next year. Although that will cost them Zadarius Smith, apparently. So we'll see if the Ravens end up getting back in the mix for Zadarius. Anyway, sorry. I'm weirded out by it because pickles, spears, full pickles, there's nothing better in my life than going to a deli, right? And then you see that giant, what do you call those things? It's not a basket, it's not a jar. What do you call what the hell? Why can't I think of this word?
Like one of those gallon jars?
No,
What are you talking
it's like Oh my God! What the hell? Why is my brain
A
not
vat
functioning?
of pickles?
No, it's like on the ground, a barrel, but it's not really a barrel necessarily.
Bucket?
No, God. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's
No
full
idea.
of giant ass pickles, and you're like, I need one of those right now. And then you
Can't
eat it like it
do-
was a hot dog.
No,
It's
I can't-
unbelievable.
I can't do like the whole pickles either, where you like just like.
What
bite
what
it.
is wrong?
I can't.
What's
Has to
wrong
be
with
pickle
you?
Chips and that's it.
Delicious. I
Can't eat
also
it
He has some
another way.
pickles on the way home.
pickles are amazing.
Pickles
All right,
are
number
so
4.
good.
Wait, we got to speed up the process.
Okay, number 4 is fried plantains.
The hell? Who doesn't like fried
A lot
plantains?
of people, but like these are like midnight
What?
snacks to me. Like these are things that I would
I mean,
eat
it's.
at midnight.
I would only say it's strange in that like you have to specifically make sure you have fried plantains in the house,
Right,
which is a weird.
exactly.
It's a weird thing to have in your house.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a weird thing to just be like, I'm craving fried plantains.
Yeah, I mean, like,
just
I
need to
don't-
go pull it out
not
of my pantry.
yeah, not something I keep in my house. I agree with
Right.
you upon that, but
Mhm.
I don't know, man. Like fried plantains are delicious.
Mm-hmm.
The hell doesn't like? You don't like fried plantains?
To be fair, I haven't had them since I was a child, but I hated them
Oh,
so much back then I haven't gone back.
Incredibly good.
Then no one made them right.
I mean, come on,
All I
man.
have to say.
When you go to the Brazilian steakhouse, you don't enjoy a few fried plantains when
I
you're
don't
there.
know that I've ever been to a Brazilian steakhouse.
Well, that's another conversation for another day that we'll have to deal with. That's a mistake. Next,
Okay, and third place is
do
grits.
you really keep fried plantains in your house though?
In my apartment on campus, I do.
That's
for
so
sure.
funny.
Like, I'll
It's so
literally
funny
go
to
to the
me.
store and I'll go buy them because like I love them so much.
I don't mean I'm not knocking the hustle. It's just not something that I have at Glenn Clark's house. There aren't just fried
Mhm. I mean, I have
plantains
fried
sitting
plantain-
around.
I have plantain chips too.
Yeah, I mean,
Those are really good
sure,
too.
of course.
Yeah. But third is grits.
Does somebody not like grits?
No, but it's like, how do you eat your grits? Is the real question.
So I do not. Okay, I'm glad you bring this up.
It's a valid question.
I am very southern in this way, right?
Okay.
Like if there's something that drives me nuts about grits, 1, too runny. Hate runny grits.
Mhm.
Hate runny grits. Hate runny grits. Just
Agreed.
throw them away. 2, I don't care for sugar on my grits. I am a hot sauce on my grits, man.
Okay.
I like that route. It's the same way that I actually like I love cheese grits. Cheese grits are incredible, right? And I love shrimp and grit. I think more of grits. I don't think of it as a sugary breakfast food, right? I think of it way more. If I want to have a sugary breakfast food, I'll just have cereal, oatmeal, something along those lines. I like grits as an accompaniment to a solid meal later on during the
Okay.
course of the day.
See, I like sugar on my grits. I grew up that way. My mom makes them that way. I love my.
No, I
mom's
hate you now. I'm
grits.
sorry. It's just the way
It's
that it goes.
okay.
I have no
It's
choice.
fine.
I have to hate you.
That is
Yeah,
solid.
we are mortal
I get
enemies
it.
now at this point.
Mhm. But I love it. I'll eat that at like 11 o'clock at night. I'll be
But
like,
you
"I
haven't
want
named
some
one
grits."
food that's weird to me yet.
Just wait. It's
These
coming.
aren't weird.
They're not weird, but I'm saying like these are like.
But do
things
you
that, like,
keep okay
most people
again?
don't
Do
eat
you
at, like,
do you
11 o'clock
keep
at night.
grits in your house at all times? Okay,
Yes.
all right, I'll give you that. That's weird.
what I'm saying.
That's weird.
Like these are
That's
my
weird.
top
All
foods
right.
I go
All right.
to all
That's
the
weird.
time.
That's weird.
In second, I said my favorite thing. Oh my gosh, I love this cold rice, like leftover cold rice. So like when my mom cooks food, or if I cook food, I always make enough that I can put it in a Tupperware, so I can put it in the fridge and like have it so cold.
Just the rice.
Just the rice, and then I put salt and pepper on the cold rice. I'll eat it like if I have dinner at 6, I'll put it in the fridge, and then after I like go and play soccer or something, I'll come back and at like 11 o'clock, that's like my like snack. I think it's so good. I'll eat that straight just like it. It's amazing.
Okay,
Cold rice.
I'm out. I'm out.
I
You
like
finally
cold-
found one.
I like cold French fries, and I prefer cold apple pie to warm apple pie.
There's a lot of things that I won't warm up. Here's where I'll give you an example. If my wife, Mrs. Clark, loves making like stir fries or casseroles or like the types of things where you just throw a bunch of stuff all into one. I don't ever, because I'm smart, I just tell her I love everything. Like everything, I'm like, thank you for making dinner. I don't necessarily care for anything where vegetables are thrown in. I don't want to warm up vegetables. Like I never want to eat a reheated vegetable. So if she makes a stir fry, for example, and there's some left over, that will not be warmed up. I will just eat it cold because I don't want the vegetables to be reheated. I don't want that.
Yeah, I agree because I think broccoli and cauliflower is like such a good snack cold too. I'll eat that like for a snack.
100%. So
With, like lemon pepper.
a stir fry, of course, involves cold rice. If I do
Yeah.
it that way, the rice is going to be cold as well, and it's fine, right? Now, again, anything that involves rice, I'm throwing some sort of hot sauce on. Like that's just the way it's going to go. That's my play. But that's the only way. Cold rice by itself, nah.
Like I'll intentionally go to the store and buy like the Minute Maid rice just so I can put it in the fridge and have it.
That's
for
a
snack
weird
later.
bit. That is a weird
I
bit.
love it.
You've definitely
It's my
that one
favorite.
qualifies as weird. All right, and number one.
Number one is hot Cheetos with cream cheese. No,
Every part of that confuses me.
that
Hang
was
on
the
a
one
second.
That I need you both to try. Like
Hot.
you have to.
What it makes them hot Cheetos?
Flaming hot.
Like
Flaming.
hot
Okay,
Cheetos.
I thought you meant like you went and put them in the oven
No,
or
like
something.
Flaming hot Cheetos.
Okay, flaming hot Cheetos, which in and of itself are fine.
Yeah, they're great.
Why?
I don't like any of the flaming hot brand.
Interestingly enough,
Mm.
I don't love them. I have a bigger plain Cheetos suck. I mean, they're terrible. They're a horrible snack. They're for children.
Okay.
They're low rent.
Well, then I'm a child.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
bad news. I got bad news, Cassidy. You qualify. Plain Cheetos are a child snack. There's no flavor profile there. It's just you want to have the cheese powder on your fingers. You want to have the experience. They're a terrible snack. That being said, I am interested in how the first time came about that you ended up dipping them in cream cheese.
Well, I random roomed my sophomore year with like these 3 girls I've never met before, and I like come in and my roommate, her name is Sloan, and she is eating a snack in her bed. And at the time we lived in a dorm where we were in the same room, so I'm sitting in my bed and I'm seeing her pull out hot Cheetos, which I've never had before to begin with, and then she has cream cheese, and I'm like, okay. And she was like, you have to try this. It's like amazing. And I was like, no, that is disgusting. And she's like, do you like hot Cheetos? And I tried it and I was like, yeah, they're good. She's like, do you like cream cheese? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, just trust me on it. So I tried it right then and there. And ever since then, I will literally buy a tub of cream cheese and a big bag of hot Cheetos, and that is a snack that I will eat.
That is it's a weird combination.
Do you like both of them? Do you like them
I
both
don't
separately?
love cream cheese.
Okay.
I cream cheese in context, like as part of a dip, fine. In and of itself, don't care for it ever since I stopped eating bagels. Like to me, the bagels were really, as I said before, bagels are garbage. We just pretend like they're amazing. Bagels are great for a sandwich. They're not good for just eating a bagel. Like there's nothing. It's just a vehicle for cream cheese. You can do better. That being said, I actually think the combination might work.
It's
like
amazing.
I just couldn't find myself saying, this is what I want. I'm going to go back to this. I think that I could walk in and say, like, yeah, it's all right.
Like there's days where it'll be like 11 o'clock and I'm like, guess I'm taking a trip to 7-Eleven because I'm craving it that bad.
So I'll tell you, I enjoy Royal Farms chicken salad, and I will eat them.
That's a weird. That's your first choice at a Royal Farms?
No,
Okay.
not my first
Okay.
choice. But if I'm looking for something to snack on and I'm feeling some chicken, I'll get some Royal Farms chicken salad and I will eat them with crab chips, and that's pretty delicious. I used to like to dip saltines into Caesar dressing. That was always
love
good.
That is so good.
And
random
That is
combination
so
too.
and the most random, and I learned this off of TikTok, and it tastes pretty damn close to cheesecake. Oreos with Cheese Whiz.
Okay, you got it. You're a.
I tried it.
You should be on the no-fly list. Get the F out of here.
I tried it. It's not
Get
a go-to
the F
for me,
out of here.
but it was decently
if
good.
I ever saw you do that, I would not allow you around my children. I
I
just
only
want to
tried
make
it
that
the
abundantly clear.
I only tried it the one
you
time.
may not come within
But it wasn't
1,000
bad.
feet
It wasn't bad.
of my children. Do you understand that, you psychopath?
I will watch.
Don't knock it till you try it, bro.
whatever
No,
the
I will.
movie you
That will
said.
never occur.
What was the movie that you
Something about Mary.
About
For
Mary?
God's sakes.
I will watch that movie like by the time I come back, the next time I'm back, or
Uh-huh.
whatever. I will watch it if you guys both try cream cheese and hot Cheetos.
Are you gonna bring them in?
I'll bring it in, yeah.
You bring
I'll
it in. I tell you what.
Friday.
You bring it in Friday. I'll try it, but only if you have watched Something About Mary before then.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Very good.
Sounds good.
Thank
We
you,
want
Cass.
movie quotes.
Thank you,
Oh my
Cass.
God,
I mean,
okay.
if you watch Something About Mary, there'll be plenty of them. I
There'll be
promise
plenty
you
of
that.
them.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Cass. Good job. Top 5. Let's get a tidbit quickly. Tidbit brought to you today by Glory Days Grill. The St. Patrick's menu is available at Glory Days Grill and includes the smoky thigh wings with the Guinness grilling sauce, the Reuben, the Rachel, so much more at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill, glorydaysgrill.com to get your order in.
All right. With Towson's loss last night, really only the Navy midshipmen from the state of Maryland truly stand a legitimate shot at making the NCAA tournament, assuming the Terrapins don't make a run and UMBC and Coppin State don't make runs either. Navy takes on Colgate for the Patriot League tournament championship tomorrow night. If they were to win, it would mark their first NCAA tournament berth since 1998. It would also mark just their fourth conference tournament championship since joining the Patriot League and seventh overall. Did you know that Navy has actually been to the Elite Eight 3 times in program history as recently as 1986? While all that is good and well, if Navy loses tomorrow night, it's likely that the state of Maryland will be shut out of the NCAA tournament for the first time since when?
I told you.
I know.
We got to get rid of year questions.
It's the tidbit's not easy these days, man.
I understand. It just can't be a year question. Just tell me. We'll just move past it.
One.
Oh, yeah? You know this one? When is it?
Because you looked at my phone?
I did not. I did not even
What
look
is
that
it?
way. 2011.
How did you know that?
I looked at
Yeah,
the
100%.
phone.
There's no chance that it was anything.
It's 2000. But did you also know that David Robinson is the all-time leading scorer in the history of the CAA?
It's funny. I didn't know that, but if I would have reminded myself they were in the CAA at that point, I would have remembered that. Yeah, I would have remembered that. All right, here's what's coming up. Totally tubular-wise tonight. Unfortunately, no, they're going to play the CAA championship game without Towson. It's what it is. It'll be Wilmington and Delaware for the title, 7 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. That's one of 6 games that will determine NCAA tournament spots tonight. The Atlantic Sun, NEC, and Summit League championship games all on ESPN2 starting at 5 o'clock. ESPN for the Horizon League and WCC championship. That's a great one at 9 o'clock on ESPN, Gonzaga and St. Mary's. ACC tournament gets underway today on ACC Network. NBC Sports Washington for Capitals Flames at 9. ESPN Plus and Hulu for Coyotes Red Wings at 7:30. TNT for Pelicans Grizzlies at 7:30. Clippers Warriors at 10. CBS for Champions League action. Liverpool and Inter Milan at 3. And the USA Network for WWE NXT tonight at 8. And Big Ten Network Plus for VCU Maryland Baseball at 4. Some non-sports highlights.
Alicia Keys is going to be on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon this evening. The Last One Standing series premiere on Netflix. And on HBO, Undercurrent, The Disappearance of Kim Wall. The first 2 episodes at 9 and 10 tonight. I don't know who Kim Wall is, but a good disappearance documentary is always good for me.
I probably won't look at it, but I hear you. I probably will not end up squeezing that in, but I get it. All right, thanks today to Patrick Stevens. Thanks to Randy Mueller. We'll get all that up in the greatest hits section of the
Archives
tab at glennclarkradio.com. Coming up on the program tomorrow, I mentioned earlier, Griff Aldrich, former UMBC assistant, now the head coach at Longwood. They're in the NCAA tournament for the first time in program history. He's going to join us tomorrow. I assume Drew's joining us tomorrow. We're going to talk. We'll catch up with Navy. We're going to try to do that today. Their travel schedule got changed, so we'll catch up with them tomorrow ahead of their game tomorrow night and stuff and things. As always, don't know what, but it'll be good, I hope. Can't promise. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, CIAA Tournament, Grade 8's Memorabilia, Live Casino and Hotel, Underdog Fantasy Football, Blue Line K9, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to, Cass, you're on Twitter? Yeah.
Cassidy Butler 5.
And Instagram?
Cassidy_Elizabeth 22.
Thank you. Follow us at Glenn Clark Radio. Follow Paul at Paul Valley III. Have a great Tuesday night. Go nobody, unfortunately. Maryland baseball. Duke sucks. Ohio State sucks too. If you're with us right now on video, give us a minute. We'll be back. If you're with us on audio, do nothing. Coming up next, it's Simply the Bets.